Nikita and I'm a Senior Program Manager at Pride Circle. Thank you for joining us to celebrate this iconic moment and to honor the IWEI Top Employers 2020. IWEI stands for India Workplace Equality Index. It is the country's first comprehensive benchmarking tool to enable organizations to measure their progress for LGBT plus inclusion. IWEI is a joint initiative between Keshav Suri Foundation, Pride Circle, and Stonewall, and we are delighted to have FICCI as an industry partner. It is truly a moment of great pride for all of us, announcing the results and launching the report, which will serve as a groundbreaking study in the history of LGBT plus inclusion in India. Before we begin, a few housekeeping rules to keep in mind. Please keep yourself on mute, and in case you have any questions, please type your questions, comments in the chat box, and we will try and address it during the course of the event. With that, and without further ado, may I invite Keshav Suri, founder KSF, to deliver the keynote address. Over to you, Keshav.
Hi, namaskar, everyone. Thank you so much for that introduction. I hope everyone can hear me and see me clearly. I want to begin by saying how tough this year has been. And this year has been a year where I think pretty much everybody has suffered, some more greatly than others. And from the time when we actually first got together and announced the Workplace Equality Index with the Stonewall, to now, nobody really foresaw how much of destruction this year would bring. And there was a particular time when I almost gave in to my sort of darkest thoughts and said that, okay, maybe we shouldn't do it. And maybe we'll delay it for by a year because maybe it's being tone deaf because the world, does it really need this right now? Does the country really need this right now? Because there's so much of suffering that's happening. And I remember even having a conversation with Ram and Richa on the same. And I'm so glad that they didn't listen to me. And I'm so glad that we are actually having this conversation and that this index is being launched, because all the doubts that I had, it actually basically, the reasoning behind this index and what the index brings clears up all those doubts. We've realized in these last couple of months how important it is to recognize the marginalized communities, how important it is within our own LGBTQIA plus community to see the various sub-minorities, to understand that there are certain people who get more affected when there are global crises like this, to understand that how jobs are so important right now. They've never been more important. How protection in those jobs and anti-discriminatory policies in those jobs are so important right now. How it is important to now not only have a mindset change, but also to embark on a change on how hiring functions, how queer team members are looked at in their company. Are they made to feel visible? Are they put in decision-making powers? How important diversity, equity, and inclusion is right now. And I think that creating queer-friendly spaces, not just physically, but also online and in a company, so that a team member can bring them whole self to work. I think that after all these months, we've realized that this is the time to do it. If we don't do it now, we would never do it. And I have to thank the team of Stonewall, Pride Circle, KSF, Richa, and of course the industry body FICCI, who have not only given us their platform to be on today, but also unwaveringly supported us. And unlike me, did not question this index even once, or the validity of it, or even the timing of it, and said that we will go ahead and do this and be the first industry body to actually talk about LGBTQ inclusion, but now not just talk about it anymore, to actually live and breathe it. And with that, I'd like to also thank all the companies that have participated. I can see some fantastic panelists, all the companies that have participated and put their faith in us, and their faith and given us their stamp of approval as well, just like FICCI did. I cannot thank you guys enough, and I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Chinoy, who can quickly give us his address who is the Secretary General of FICCI. And thank you so much, and see you in this fabulous session.
Thank you, Keshav, for that, those kind words about FICCI. For me, being here is part of a journey. I remember the earlier events, but most importantly, I think it was on the 18th of November 2019, where we launched the Open for Business report in FICCI about inclusion there. So that time I congratulated the KSF Foundation. Once again, I'd like to congratulate the KSF Foundation, this time Pride Circle and Stonewall UK, for accomplishing the IWEI final report, which really marks India Inc.'s positive approach towards supporting the cause of LGBTQ plus inclusion and measures based on a comprehensive toolkit. If we recall at that meeting, and also in the event prior to that, which we had at the Lalit Hotel, I had actually commented, including in the exhibition, there seemed to be a preponderance of multinational companies, if I were to use that term, and very few Indian companies, other than the one exception who's again present here. But between that first thing, and I'm very glad also in between, we've had the Godrej team come out with their book, and I had promised that I will actually do it at the annual convention. We can't do it at this one because physically we can't have the book distributed, but we have parked that for the next annual convention. But what gives me great, immense kind of joy and pride, if I may use the word in a different context, is that many of the FICCI member companies have participated in Index. And my only request is that for those who could not participate this year, we will give them the latitude of accepting COVID as an excuse this year. But next year, we would like to see them and urge them not to mix out next year, as fundamentally the Index offers an opportunity to move the needle towards diversity and inclusion in the workplace. And if I refer to the report that we released in November of 19, it actually impacts the bottom line in many, many different ways, whether it's acceptance as a supplier, a better workplace, being rated as a better, employer. And the inclusion is not necessarily from a humanitarian sense. It also makes immense business sense for companies to have a diverse workforce. Various studies have actually documented the financial opportunity presented by not only the market internationally, but this has also been recognized in India, which is around 0.6% to 3.6%, depends on where you are from the LGBTQ community in the workforce. It is imperative that we need to promote this. We need to make acceptable work environment. You mentioned it in your opening statement, where all employees feel respected, valued, involved, irrespective of where in India caste is also an important thing. Religion also comes in here, but gender or whatever, you should be respected as an individual, and this can be ensured through supportive work policies, through awareness creation, and of course encouragement from the top leadership. And even though Uma is on this call, I never kind of put it down the line to anybody to represent FICCI in this thing. Along with the co-chair, I'm always there because I believe it needs leadership support going forward. And if you want to make society and workplaces inclusive, you can only do it if you are not a partner but an ally. There's a difference between a partner and an ally there. We are openly and in multiple dimensions and in multiple occasions aligning with the cause of the LGBTQ plus inclusion at the workplace. We are proactively encouraging corporate India to get more diverse. and also inclusive, for including everybody in the community here. Of course, the FICCI D&I task force, which is led by you, Mr. Keshav Suri, has been organizing awareness sessions, thematic webinars, and consultations with the government. Multilateral agencies, we have also started a certificate course for the D&I professionals and other aspiring candidates, which includes special segment on building LGBTQ inclusive workplaces. A very special focus has been given towards enhancing livelihood opportunities through CSR engagements. I know I'm repeating myself to you, but for the others, what the Lalit Hotel and the Lalit Hospitality Group did for this community during the lockdown is a case study worth publishing and worth replicating, not only in India, but around the world. Huge work, big contribution. Again, congratulations to you. We have also taken up issues like you mentioned about gender neutral washrooms for the transgender community, insurance coverage for same-sex partners, parental leave at relevant sectors, and will continue to bring, in cooperation with all of you on this call and others, be an ally and bring to the table the voice of the community to all that we can possibly influence and reach out to. In this exceptional times, I think when COVID has not been gender neutral, the vulnerable communities, especially the LGBTQ, have been severely impacted. And I quoted the example of the hotel, but let us rise to the occasion and commit towards building an inclusive society. And as India Inc. gets back to business, the new normal will have greater inclusivity going forward. Let me once again congratulate all the companies who made it to the list of winners, and also once again urge those who did not actually participate to look at this, and we can actually promise you that it will yield returns to the company. We are not selling anything, so I can't promise money back guarantee, but if I could, I would. Your efforts will certainly inspire others as we would put all concerted efforts to pave the road ahead for Inclusion India. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to be amongst you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dilip, for such inspiring thoughts. A really big thank you to you and your team for all the immense support extended to IWEI, and even for the FICCI Bike platform for today's event. It's really commendable. Thank you so much for being here and joining us and taking out the time. Thank you so much. All right, moving on, we have Nancy Kelly, CEO Stonewall, to deliver the keynote address. Over to you, Nancy.
Thanks, Nikki. And the first thing I want to say is that Stonewall, we're incredibly excited to be able to be part of this partnership and play a role in delivering India's first ever Workplace Equality Index. We're so proud to be partnering with the Keshav Suri Foundation and Pride Circle. You're both absolute experts in your field and your organizations that we really trust to build on Stonewall's well-established Workplace Equality Index model. This is the first time Stonewall's ever partnered with organizations outside of the UK to deliver a workplace index, and I know that there aren't two better partners we could have delivered it with. And the Stonewall team has just learned an incredible amount and had so much fun working with all of you, and we're very, very excited to see how this partnership develops and how it creates transformative change in Indian workplaces. So 2020 has been a year that none of us really predicted, and has created just some of the most challenging circumstances that businesses have ever operated in. And I really want to kind of echo the remarks that other speakers have made, kind of recognizing the real commitment that those of you that have participated in the IWEI this year have made to LGBT inclusion. To kind of step forward in a year like this is something that's incredibly impressive and something our community is really grateful for. We also know that the pandemic has had a really devastating impact on LGBT plus communities globally. We've got people that have been forced to work from homes that are deeply unsafe, where they experience domestic abuse and violence. We've got many...
You've got to unmute, you have to unmute yourself.
Oh, there we go. Sorry. We've got many people in our community who've been unable to access the healthcare that they need. We've got many people in our community that have been unable to care for family members because of a lack of inclusive policies in their workplaces. And we know that there's been a particularly devastating impact in terms of mental health within LGBT communities. All of those challenges that our communities have experienced across the globe make your commitment to LGBT inclusion even more powerful. When businesses and workplaces can be a safe place for LGBT people, when we can bring our whole selves to work, we thrive. And you, as businesses and workplaces, benefit from being able to attract and retain fantastic and high-performing talent. Being able to track your organization's progress on LGBT inclusion enables you to stay on top of best practice and make sure you're an attractive employer for potential candidates and for your own colleagues too. We want organizations to participate in the India Workplace Equality Index every year if we can. The organizations that do best in the UK, WEI, are those that regularly participate, that work with us, listen to their feedback, and work really hard to implement changes. Not only do those organizations see their WEI score grow, but they see staff engagement increase and they see their business flourish. We also know that what you tell us about your work in the index doesn't just affect what you do inside your organization, but outside it too. Organizations that feel confident in their ability to champion LGBT plus equality have been at the heart of progressive change across the globe, whether that's through joining in with public campaigns or supporting legal change through their own governmental affairs work. Your voice as a business community really matters to policymakers, and we need you to be confident and stand up and shout proudly about equality. I really want to wish all of you that are receiving your recognition as bronze, silver and gold employers huge congratulations today. Thank you for putting your trust in the first ever India Workplace Equality Index, and well done on completing your first submission and achieving such incredible results. As you're going to hear, we've already seen really amazing examples of positive change through this programme. Healthcare organisations that have trained doctors on transitioning and the experience of trans people accessing healthcare, innovative all-gender inclusive parental leave policies, LGBT internship programmes that have led to fantastic permanent hires. And I can't wait to see how many more organisations commit to participating next year, and I can't wait to see the change they go on to make in their own workplaces. Finally, I just want to say a huge thank you to the partners and the team that put this together, Ram, Risha, Nikki, and everyone else at Pride Circle and KSF. This is an incredibly proud moment for us, and thank you for choosing Stonewall as your partner. Congratulations to everybody.
Thank you so much, Nancy, for such encouraging thoughts. A big shout out to you and your team for being so supportive throughout the journey of making IVE a reality in India. Thank you so much. All right. Moving on, may I now invite Ram, co-founder Pride Circle, to set the tone for the event. Over to you, Ram. The floor is all yours.
Thank you, Nikki. I can't believe it's happening. This is something which we had planned for so long and worked so hard to it. And what a year to bring this to life, right? What a year to bring this to life. On the outset, thanks a lot, Stonewall, for trusting us to be a partner in this. This is an immense pride that this is the first organization, first collaboration for the index to go out of the UK. And I think we couldn't find a better partner like KSF to do this together. So this has been really an honor, and we're really excited that we were able to build this and bring it to India, and despite the pandemic. So thank you, Keshav, and the team at KSF for being a wonderful partner in this, and absolute thank you to FICCI and Dilip for the fantastic platform today and the support throughout the program to really ensure that IVE becomes a reality and is alive today. And we're actually just moments from announcing the results. So this has been a wonderful journey. Just wanted to come back and say that it has been quite a ride, right? This conversation for this started way back. Something as early as 2017 when I met Lynn at Stonewall at Out and Equals Summit in Philadelphia. And we're talking about the index and why this index is so important, right? Why, as an LGBT individual, it is so heartwarming to see companies sharing data and going out to prove that they are actually taking affirmative actions to ensure there is an LGBT inclusion in the workplace. It is really heartwarming that despite being the first year, there were 65 organizations that signed up for that. So a big thank you to all the organizations for participating in this. We are known to do crazy stuff and being first of the kind of everything. So thank you for that continued trust and that support that you really showed to us by trusting us that we will create a framework which would really be meaningful, which would really be able to help you understand what has happened in the space in your organization and what the way forward could look like. And we can all use a little friendly, healthy competition among organizations to really push us each other to do better. So this has been a wonderful experience for us. I will talk a little more about the history of it, but more on the significance of this. Because a lot of organizations do great work, but sometimes we don't necessarily communicate externally to the LGBT talent outside that we are really the best places to work for. This index really helps an uninitiated audience to just understand where organizations are, where the best practices in this space are. So this has been phenomenal and historic in that term also. And because in the current times, we have to definitely mention, while going through the submissions of so many organizations, it was really heartwarming to see that so many companies partnered with different NGO and CBO partners to support the community for during the time of COVID, either through supply operation or mental health support or various other initiatives. I think nothing is more important than a timely help which is meaningful and required at that point of time. So for as organizations to be agile, to able to turn around and really help the most marginalized community in the society today, that is a wonderful example of what organizations can do and how they can make a difference to the world we live in together. And we all can contribute to make a beautiful world for everyone. Talking about the challenges, when we came together in Delhi on the beautiful day of 22nd of February with Leanne from Stonewall and Keshav there, we didn't imagine that we are announcing IV and that everything is going to be great. And just like in weeks after, things completely turned around. We went into lockdown and all the schedules went down the dumpsters, honestly speaking. All the organizations, we thought this is going to be a schedule, this is going to be planned, and everything works fine. And it was just like, now what? And as Keshav said earlier, that we had this long discussion that is it relevant now? Does that make sense? Will people have the bandwidth, and will this be a priority for organizations to spend time on and put together and make a submission for an index? I'm glad we stuck through the plan and we pushed through. And again, a thank you to all the organizations. I know we have not been the best in time in terms of giving you enough and more time to revert and review and come back. So thank you so much for being so agile and turning around so quickly with every approval and every kind of calm support and everything else that your team has worked with us. So thank you for that. And we are today just at the brink of announcing the award winners for India Workplace Equality Index 2020. I'll just share a quick slide and talk about the journey. Pictures always make things more beautiful than just me talking about it. This is a quick look at where it all began. So this was a conversation in sunny Philadelphia in 2017. Then Srini and I had the pleasure of visiting the London office of Stonewall. Again, in pursuit of the conversation, how we can really work together and bring the index to India. And Keshav, you'll remember that Rise Bangalore, when you, in your conversation, you just say, hey, shall we announce the index today? And that time we hadn't formalized it. And it was kind of the teaser release of IV. And then finally at Rise Delhi 2020, we officially announced India Workplace Equality Index. So this has been a long pipe dream, and we're really honored and proud to be here today when this is a reality. Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining in, and thank you everyone for being a part of it and making it so successful.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks for the perspective and history of IV. It's so amazing to look at this, and finally it materialized into something. So grateful to be part of this also. This is an amazing thing to see that IV is materializing, and looking forward to the next year as well. So with that, We come to an end to our keynote addresses, and once again, thanks to all our leaders for joining in and gracing this occasion with their presence. Moving on to our next segment, we have our IB overview, and may I request Richa to talk about it. Over to you, Richa.
Thank you, Nikki, and thank you, Ram, for refreshing the whole of year. It is definitely very heartwarming to see this reach a culmination point today. It's a day that we've been dreaming since February, and I'm really glad that we are here and now. So, of course, the Keshav Suri Foundation had always had this dream of bringing Stonewall Index to India. We were in touch with Stonewall for the last 2 years, off and on, and some management decisions got changed and on either sides, and I'm so glad that finally we were able to put things together and actually just bite the bullet and get this rolling. So I'm truly grateful to you, Nancy, for giving us that brand, and we really value the importance and the legacy that Stonewall brings with it. Well, coming to the IB, which is the India Workplace Equality Index, today I'm glad to see that there are many participants from the companies that have already filled the questionnaire, but there are also people from various companies who would like to have a sneak peek as to what the index is all about, what are the different sections, what kind of questions can they expect, because they haven't participated this year, but hopefully will do so next year. So just a quick walkthrough. There are 9 sections of IB. The first one is policies and benefits. The policies and benefits are usually for companies to answer questions like, is there an audit process to ensure that relevant policies are gender neutral, right? So for example, we are not discriminating based on gender, and we're including all genders. For example, where the organizations have policies, do they explicitly state that the same-sex couples, and they use gender-neutral language? So such are the questions in the first section of policies and benefits. The second section is employee life cycle. And here there are questions like, what percentage of employees with recruitment responsibilities have been trained on reducing bias and discrimination towards LGBT people? So here we are trying to say that right from the time of hiring to onboarding, and then further on, is inclusion a part of the culture of the organization? The third section is employee network group. Now, there are different terminologies that companies are using, employee resource groups, etc. But basically, this is the group that brings focus on the agenda. So the first, of course, the question here would be, does the company have an LGBT employee network group? Does the group have clearly defined objectives, right? What kind of support does the group receive? Do they have leadership support, leadership buy-in? The fourth section is about allies and role models. Allies and role models are very important to keep the agenda going forward. Does the organization have a formal program or initiative to engage all non-LGBT employees to become allies? Or has the organization held internal awareness raising sessions? So these are the kind of questions that section 4 addresses. The next section is about senior leadership. And when we talk about senior leadership, we could have questions like, what support board level employees give to LGBT people? In the past year, any activities that the board has engaged in, whether it is, spoken at a LGBT event or reviewed monitoring reports and actions, met the LGBT group, etc. So I think that is extremely important section. The next one is section number 6, which is on monitoring. And when we say monitoring, it's basically about the progress, right? So where has the needle moved in the organization? How are we monitoring progress on all aspects of the organization? The seventh section is procurement. And procurement is, does the organization train or give guidance to the person responsible for procurement around D&I outcomes, inclusive of LGBT equality? For example, if you were to award a contract, does the organization scrutinize the tender process to make sure that people, potential suppliers, are not, they're not discriminated based on their sexual orientation or gender identity? The eighth section is community engagement. And this is, again, a very important section. As the organization utilizes social media accounts and online presence to demonstrate its commitment to LGBT equality, right? So this gives us a sneak preview into community engagement. And the ninth and the final section is, of course, any of additional work that the company would like to highlight that any of the previous sections have not covered. So this is really like a free space for organizations to think, to project and to share any of the good things that they have done that we can definitely consider. So another thing that I'd like to say here is that these 9 sections are fluid. This was the first time that we were rolling out the India Workplace Equality Index. And I'm sure by the feedback that we received from the participating organizations, as well as all the submissions that we have already received, we will definitely relook at the structure to make it sharper and better. So this is regarding the 9 sections of the IWEI. Of course, you all know that IWEI opened for submissions in September 2020. The deadline of submissions was November 2020. We are very, very touched to see that 65 organizations registered and participated despite the pandemic. So thank you, all of you. And in the study and in the index, 52 top employers have emerged. So congratulations to everyone. Thank you, Nikki.
Thanks, Richa. Thanks for those insights. Coming up next, we have the most awaited announcement. I'm sure everybody is excited of our IWEI winners. And I request Vicky to take the stage and please do the honors. Over to you, Vicky.
Oh, thanks so much, Nikki. It's such an honour to reveal the first set of awards for IWEI. These are our bronze employers. So bronze employers are organisations that are perhaps in their early stages of developing LGBT plus inclusion practices within their organisation. So lots of these organisations are looking at developing inclusive policy if they haven't already, and beginning to shape LGBT plus inclusion activities, perhaps using their internal communications or through the setup of an LGBT plus employee resource group. So all organisations have the opportunity to participate anonymously within the IWEI. So as well as 7 anonymous organisations that were also awarded bronze, we have 6 named employers as bronze award winners, and in alphabetical order they are Kreisel, Lilac Insights, Parexel, PaySafe, VIP Industries and Wells Fargo. So a huge congratulations to all of you in this incredible achievement. You've started your journey, which is absolutely the hardest part, and we are so excited to see what you achieve next year. Richa, I'll hand over to you for silver.
Thank you, Vicky. So coming on to the next category of winners, we have the Silver Award winners. The Silver Award winners have made significant achievements in promoting LGBT plus inclusion in the workplace, demonstrating progress and impact over time. We've had many winners in the silver category and 1 anonymous submission. So I'm going to go column-wise. The first winner is Cummins, DDB Mudra Group, Deutsche Bank, Ford, Gap Inc., GE, GSK, EdGS, Invesco, Macquarie, Nielsen, Sodexo, Standard Chartered, Tata Steel, Uber, VMware, and Wipro. Congratulations to all the silver winners.
And we're also really excited to announce our Gold Employers. Our Gold Employers have a comprehensive LGBT plus inclusion program running across the organisation's core functions. Their policies are largely really sound, and they've paid close attention to the external work as well as their internal LGBT plus activity. So these organisations are developing really truly inclusive workplace cultures and are really paying attention to detail as they do it, and have perhaps been doing this for a couple of years. So our 21 Gold Employers in alphabetical order are Accenture, Bain & Company, BCG, Citi, Citrix, Dow, EY, Godrej, Hindustan Unilever Limited, Hsbc, Intuit, JP Morgan, MasterCard, McKinsey Company India and McKinsey Knowledge Centre and McKinsey Global Services, Microsoft, Morgan Stanley, Novartis, Refinitiv and ThoughtWorks. So a huge congratulations to those 21 organisations who've really hit the ground running with their India Workplace Equality Index submission. We hope that you'll continue to retain your gold status and show us what you've achieved this time next year too.
Thank you, Vicky, and thank you, Richa. Heartiest congratulations to all the winners, and many thanks for your participation in IWEI. We truly appreciate your efforts to create an inclusive workplace. Moving on to next, now I invite Ram to share some key stats for IWEI. Ram, over to you, please.
Thanks, Nikki. A huge congratulations to all the organizations that won the gold, silver, and bronze awards, but also to all the organizations who participated, because participating is the first step of action of commitment, and action always speaks louder than words. And we look forward to the list growing to more and more organizations who continue to be part of the IWEI and leverage the IWEI framework to continue their journey on LGBT plus inclusion. Coming to the fun facts around the index. So what we found that larger organizations score better, which was interesting. The total average score climbed consistently as you moved from employee strength from under 5K to 10K to 50K and above 50K. So we basically bucketed organization based on the total employee size they have, and their average score kept increasing. Maybe scaling D&I initiatives is easier when you grow bigger. Just a thought. We are really delighted to share that a total of 16 industry sectors were represented in IWEI, and the top 3 were IT/ITES, BFSI, professional and consulting services. The foreign versus Indian is always a debate. That is something even Dilip talked about. Like, we mostly see MNCs talking about LGBT plus inclusion and not so many Indian companies. We have a ratio and a number to that. The ratio of Indian companies versus foreign MNCs is 1:5. There are 5 foreign-based companies which are active and participated in IWEI compared to an Indian organization. This itself is a good start. We really see more and more organizations, and we're really delighted to see organizations in the list of gold, silver, and bronze who have chosen to participate openly and are Indian and MNCs. That number is definitely increasing, and we look forward to having more and more Indian companies to be a part of this. The average score of foreign-based MNCs is roughly 1.4x the average of Indian companies. Again, another interesting insight. Is it primarily because it's easier for foreign-based companies to get those buy-in, the leadership buy-in, have those policies to be replicated in India, or just contextualized? What makes it easier, if at all, for a foreign-based company to be more inclusive compared to an Indian counterpart? Sections that are doing great. So the 9 sections which I talked about, we found that there's great focus on policies and benefits, employer resource group, allies, and role models. These are the sections where most organizations grab their maximum scores. Now, sections which can definitely use some more attention is procurement. So we'll start with the most ignored in a certain sense section, which is procurement, then monitoring, and then senior leadership. There are a lot of best practices which are available in the report. So there are chat window will have the section for the report. It's the workplaceequalityindex.com. If you go on that page, you can now download the report. It's available online. We really believe in the statement, you can make a difference, and all the organizations which took part in IWEI this year, which made a submission, you are making a difference despite a very challenging year, despite everything that is going wrong around us and this overwhelming sense of helplessness and hopelessness we are all dealing with because of the pandemic. We continue to strive and push forward in our journey of inclusion, and that is remarkable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ram, for such a great insights and the data. It looks amazing. And yes, as Ram mentioned, I would request you all to just take a look at the chat box. The link will be there, so you can download the report. And yes, quite excited, I'm sure. Moving on, it's time to hear the change makers from our silver and bronze employers. So may I now invite Vicky to do the introduction to our esteemed panelists and to moderate the discussion. Over to you, Vicky.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really excited about this part. I think hearing from the organisations that do the work and have experienced the change is one of the most important parts of this whole exercise is industries. So my name's Vicky, my pronouns are she and her. I'm head of global partnerships at Stonewall, and I'm the Stonewall lead on our partnership on IWEI. I thought actually it'd be great to hear from all of the speakers themselves. So Gurpreet, can we start with you? Could you just introduce yourself and your organisation?
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Gurpreet, so working as an Associate Director in Parexel International Services India Private Limited. So we are a clinical research organization, so supporting the development of new treatments for patients. We have offices across 50 countries and the world, and proudly saying that we have D&I committees across all the major regions, right from Argentina to Japan. So I think that should be it, and looking forward to our discussion further.
Thank you. Saravya, I'll pass to you.
Hello, thanks for the opportunity, Vicky. I'm Shurobi. I'm part of Hinduja Global Solutions, and I take care of diversity and inclusion for the organization. Our journey in D&I began quite a long time ago, actually, before many organizations didn't even have at that time D&I as a separate function. So early 2012 and 13 is when we had a separate D&I function where people working in the function primarily D&I was their day job. You know, they weren't fluctuating between two different roles. So what happens because of that is that we were able to move mountains in these last few years. The LGBT inclusion piece definitely has been a newer aspect. And as we were talking about this piece before the session began, it's only in the last 1.5, 2 years that we've included LGBT inclusion. But thanks to organizations like Pride Circle, which are helping so many different organizations realize the power of inclusion, that we've been able to make a lot of difference in the lives of people and helping them be who they are in the organization.
Thank you. And Ritam, could you...
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, Ritam, we can hear you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Ritam Mitra. I've been with GE for over 12 years now. I'm the engineering manager with the GE renewable energy business, supporting the onshore wind turbine fleet. I lead the Pride Alliance chapter for the GE India Technology Center, and that is what I am representing here today. Additionally, I'm also the co-leader for the GE Renewable Energies businesses Global Pride Alliance Affinity Group. The GE India Technology Center is the largest integrated research and development center for GE outside of the US. We have all research and development technologists supporting all different GE businesses from aviation, renewables, power, to global research, healthcare, all based out of this center. And that's the forum, the D&I work over there is what I'm here representing today.
made you decide to do the IWEI? Why did you decide to?
Sorry, Vicky, I think we lost you, or I think Vicky's gotten hung.
Yeah, so probably I can take over till Vicky is back.
Yes, please do, Ram. Thanks.
Hi. It'll be great to start just like your journey, like, and probably we could start with Parexel. Like, what has your journey been? And getting started, as you said earlier, like you started in 2018. What does it take to get started on this journey?
Yeah, thanks, Ram. So yes, the journey started rather in 2015. So where we consciously look towards diversity and inclusion as one of our priorities, and really to see the motive that everyone working here can bring their authentic selves forward, and we do value, respect, and support everyone for who the person is. So when we started in 2015, the main motives or the main programs that we started were like women in leadership, men advocating real change. So mostly like gender partnership thing. We do have our D&I committee that's sponsored by the executive leadership team and endorsed by our CEO. There are further steering committees for Pride, for gender partnership, even for supplier diversity and others. So as the time passed by, and in 2018, I mean, parallel to when India took its historic decision to read down the Article 377. So that gave us a stimulus and impetus that this diversity and inclusion should further be strengthened to include the LGBTQ inclusion policies. So I'll say it's not been long that we are working for LGBTQ inclusion in particular, but still in those 2 years, we have done quite a few things. Like we have started a specific targeted program, Safe Zone Training, where we make people aware of the needs or the challenges faced by the community. We celebrated Pride Month last year, this year. And the best thing there was, I mean, the sheer participation from overall the organization, where everyone came up with art, with dances, with poetry, supporting the whole thing. And I won't take long here. So, and this was even supported, I mean, we had our chief commercial officer here, and people from that senior leadership coming to support such events. I'm in talks already leaps and bounds about this. So, and maybe one other point before I stop. So, among other things, we have probably kind of pioneered even in introducing a gender neutral POSH policy in Parexel in India. So even when it is not mandated by the government. So that's how our journey looks like till now.
Brilliant, thank you. Sorry for the interruption, I think I'm back. Sharovi, could you share a little bit about your journey and why you think it's important to participate?
You know, it's interesting, Vicky, when we started our journey, like many organizations, even we started first with gender diversity and then moved on to include other facets of inclusion, which is LGBTQ and PWD inclusion as well. But the interesting thing is that we never spent a lot of time in terms of dealing with why do we need diversity and inclusion? You know, that whole concept of what's the business case of diversity and inclusion, that wasn't a question in our mind. I mean, you know, even till now, if anyone asks me what's the business case for inclusion, I want to understand from them what's the business case for homogeneity. You know, so for us, it was very simple that it's common sense. You're operating in a society, you're operating in an environment. Do you mirror the environment in which you are operating? So if you have a philosophy that is backed up by the leadership, it then becomes very easy to incorporate any initiative, any program, because at the crux of it, it is what your values are. What's the philosophy with which the organization wants to go ahead with. That's where we started. And interestingly, Dilip at the beginning of the session was saying there's no money back guarantee. But Dilip, there's actually quite a lot of money back guarantee, because most researchers, including McKinsey's research, proves that organizations with higher quotient of diversity and inclusion perform better productivity in terms of innovation and creativity. So all of this was given, and this is what we started our journey with. And each facet of inclusion that we incorporated into the thread of the organizational culture was based on this philosophy that inclusion is a must. You cannot leave someone behind when you are moving ahead towards a journey. So we launched the first gender neutral policy that we launched was way back in 2012, and that was the PROSH policy. And at that time, nobody was talking about PROSH being gender neutral, but our policy was gender neutral since then. Of course, over the period of time, looking at some of the things that were happening and to increase inclusion quotient within the organization, we from there on made sure that 100% of our policies today are gender neutral. Like there's no policy in the organization that has a he, she, or that says mother or father. These are very small things. If you look at it, these are just semantics. But there is an employee who's looking at it. And that employee must be thinking, hey, I am in that policy. That policy means it is for me. So it was small things like that. The biggest achievement for us definitely was launching our comprehensive and integrated medical insurance policy, which covers same-sex partners. It covers, it provides maternity benefits, not just to women, but to anybody who has childbearing abilities, allied leaves, adoption leave, even coverage for, when someone is undergoing counseling and therapy, all those bits are covered in these policies. So I guess the journey has been very interesting, but at the same time, it has been rather easy for me, if I have to use that word without taking away the meaning or the effort that goes into it, because it was driven with a philosophy that, you cannot be a progressive organization if you leave people behind.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you said about what's the point in homogeneity and what's the point in staying the same, I totally agree with that as well. And you've all in some ways kind of talked about your beginning of the journey, and we've talked about policy, and for a lot of organizations that are thinking about participating in the IWEI will probably be looking at that as their very first step, and we've just touched upon it, but I wonder for the other panelists, how important is policy in your organizations? Have you got any examples of policies that are really working well, and what do they look like?
Perhaps I can just speak to that. So, at a very high level, treating each other with respect and, ensuring that the organization's strong prohibition of discrimination and harassment based on any protected characteristics I've long been part of, in the spirit and the letter of GE. And I'm sure, like many other organizations would also have the same thing. But actually operationalizing those views into policies and practices that matter and impact an individual is really something that we have had to be, we've taken more direct action on that. So over the last couple of years, speaking about the GE India, in terms of the policies, the medical insurance and relocation policies for us now provide for the declaration of same-sex partners as dependents. Also, gender reassignment surgery is now covered in the medical insurance policies. And from a practice standpoint, gender neutral restrooms have been introduced in every work floor of the technology center in Bangalore. And we found, these some of these policies and this this infrastructure setup that we did to have it a good, was received well amongst the employees.
And Gurpreet, what sort of impact does policy have on your organization's ability to kind of build LGBT best practice?
Yeah, thanks, Vicky. So with respect to policies, as I said earlier, that we seem to have just begun in this area. So POSH is the first policy that we have really brought in this sphere, if I can say, for as a gender neutral policy. We are still working and exploring what we can do further in health insurance and other areas. So however, we are trying to take all functions along with us. So whether it be procurement or the learning and development or the talent acquisition team, so that the principle of inclusivity can be taken as an inclusive principle along, across all functions. So yeah, we're still on the way there.
Thanks. And because I think for lots of organizations, it's really helpful to see that you can be at the very beginning stages, but still be a silver or a bronze employer. For all of you, what so far is the thing that you're most proud of in terms of your LGBT plus work? And what is the one thing that this time next year you would really love to be able to tell us that you have achieved? Who would like to start?
I can start, Vicky, if that's okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, all right. So I guess one of the proud moments for us was, is that employees are now uninhibited about being who they are. And if that is the intent with which we started this journey, then to us that is just the cherry on the icing. Everything else, whether that is infrastructure, whether that's policy, whether that is an ecosystem, all the work that we are doing as organization and everyone on this panel is talking about. And I guess that's also the philosophy with which Pride, Stonewall, as well as KSF are trying to imbibe that in organization. At the crux of it is, can a person in our organization come to work and be who they are? So for us as an organization, that definitely is the most proud moment for us.
Vicky, maybe I'll share my views next. I think, since in the context of, the legal context of India, it's only been, say, 2 years since, say, a large number of organizations have started to explore LGBT inclusion and with more focus. I think, like many other organizations in India, to be very honest, I think as an organization, G India Technology Center, we are at a stage of only awareness and sensitization. And that's where most of our activations have been over the last 2 years. So that includes, hosting a Pride meetup event at the Tech Center in Bangalore last year, which, amongst others, was a huge eye-opening thing for me. Made me shift from being a passive ally to an active ally myself. With various art workshops we did, participating in the 21-day Ally Challenge, having multiple workshops on LGBT sensitization, gender-neutral verbiage, focusing on senior leaders, people leaders, and all those activations throughout this year has been probably, it's one of those journeys that you have to take without there being any measurable outcome, right in front of you, because you're trying to educate people. But since you asked what would be a proud moment, about in November, we had one of those all-employee sessions. We partnered with Pride Circle. And I was not expecting this. Usually people get volunteered, nominated sometimes to this ERGs. I checked my inbox one day, a few days after that event, and I found a couple of people sent me a note. Hey, I'm so happy that there is this group in GE. Can I be a part of it? So I know we are making that progress. We are reaching out. We are reaching out to an individual contributor who was not asked by his manager to participate in an event. And I think that's telling us that we are in the right direction. Some of the areas where we think where we should be, again, based on my experience while filling out the IWEI audit, I felt we need to do probably a better job of advertising, profiling senior leaders, making more vocal allyship communications in-house. There are some areas where we will have challenges in terms of monitoring. We don't have that data, but we'll have to figure out, we'll have to work with experts across the industry, across to understand how best we can do that. So that's one thing which we will definitely be focusing on in the next year.
Amazing, thank you. I can't wait to hear how that develops. And Gurpreet, what's your most proud moment, and what?
Yes. So, Vicky, as I probably highlighted earlier, so the most proud moment, I think the most proud moment is just in sync with what is the biggest priority what we see, and that, as Rhythm said, I think it's awareness. So that's the must, or the foremost requirement at this time. And the pride moment was when all through the organization, all the employees really participated with the enthusiasm, where they showed their support for the community through art, dance, poetry, everything. So that was really wonderful. Other similar but small examples which do leave an impact, like we were just having our Par Excel India annual awards, and inclusion was one of the categories for nominations. So these small things, I do think they go a long distance. Further, I mean, again, I'm speaking out a very small measure maybe, but again, the email signatures. So we are taking care of all the email signatures from our organization. They are really coming up with the gender pronouns. So when the chief administrator officer of the company sends you an email with those gender pronouns, and it is read by the masses, I think that makes an impact. Moving to where you said that or what would we be probably telling you next year. So I really think we need to work further on the policies. So to really bring the theoretical part into that, so that we can implement them with more formally, basically.
Brilliant, thank you. And the work on gender neutrality and the gender pronouns piece is something that I think nearly all of you have touched on, and is really important, and actually in the UK, I think is very much still a work in progress. So I hope that your UK colleagues are able to bring up speed like you have been on that work as well. Just a reminder to the audience that you can ask questions in the chat function, which I think is to the right of your screen. There's a Q&A box. If you have questions for these three panelists, please put them in there. I've seen a couple of questions that ask about downloading the report, so I think Ram might be able to just send the link for that during this call or afterwards. And for the panelists, what advice would you give to an organization? Advice would you give to an organization thinking about doing it, but maybe is a bit hesitant?
So I guess I'll just speak from experience, Vicky, that I think the first step is to just start talking about it. As you know, you mentioned that the awkwardness about it is because we are so conditioned. You know, we are so it's ingrained social conditioning of not talking about certain topics, and this is one of such thing. The more you talk about it, the more you normalize conversations. So it's the first barrier that one can break when you are willing to take that first step. So the more, you know, in the first year, we did not change anything drastically because we were not sure whether people are ready for it. So what we did was we just talked about it. And when I say talked about it, is we started from leadership, but we went down to grassroots level. We included drama as a piece of sensitization, you know, theater, drama, road shows, whatever works for the crowd that you have. So, you know, every organization works in a certain demographics. And I guess that was the biggest step. Everything after that is very easy. Making changes to the environment that we are in any form, whether that's in terms of language, policy, programs, that becomes much easy because people have started talking about it, and they find it easy to have a conversation about it, and there's no more awkwardness about some of the things that people are referring to. So I would say that anyone who is looking forward to take the first step, just start talking about it.
Can you share your story that you shared before? When we were chatting earlier on about how you brought all of this work together. Do you mind sharing that story?
No. So, I was joking that just putting this whole thing was a moment of introspection for us. And it was so comprehensive. I mean, the questions that were asked, one, were comprehensive, but there was an evidence required. So we felt almost like, almost you're presenting your case in the court. So you had to have evidence for every single thing. And it took us a few days' time to get to each and every evidence. And when I say evidence, I don't just mean screenshots. So for example, for the Pride 2020 campaign, we had a total reach of 57,000 plus for our posts in digital media. Who would remember that statistics? To go back and figure that out. Or, internally, more than 7,900 of our people participated in the internal quizzes and competitions for Pride month that we had put together. So I was just joking that, the person who was helping me, Priyanka, who was leading this piece, she put in a few days of effort and it goes into her timesheet. I was joking with Ram that, Ram, you should know that this went into her timesheet, that she spent so many hours just putting together the evidences.
Oh, and we're very grateful that you did, and we hope you feel like you've got something back from those
Absolutely.
hours too. Oh, good. Ritam, Gurpreet, what about you? What would your advice be to an organisation thinking about participating in the IWEI but maybe isn't so sure?
I think I'm probably borrowing this phrase from another company, but just do it. I think there's nothing to lose. There's everything to gain. I mean, you gain a lot of perspective, knowledge, where you stand, where you want to go. I would say that any organization, I mean, as organizations, we deal with people, right? Organizations is made up of people, and people by nature, by definition, are diverse. So as leaders at any level in an organization, if we are not thinking about diversity and inclusion as an intrinsic part of our job, something is fundamentally wrong. So I think it's only natural and important that, I don't think I think there should be a day when D&I does not become a separate discussion, but it's just the way you do your work. I think we can go into a lot of technicalities in what is the best way to set up your ERG and all, and I think every organization has the requisite intellect to do that, figure that out. But I think from an IWEI perspective, the reason we went into was we have done something over the last few years. We think we made a lot of good impact, but it was very important for us to calibrate where we stand, what are the things we want to do in the future. Because especially in the LGBT diversity group, it's very difficult to get information from our employees directly. We do not have data on an employee. I mean, we don't get that data. We don't collect and store that data. We may know somebody in our personal capacities, but we don't have that data as an organization. So it's very difficult to actually filter and get that voice of that employee from that community and understand if whatever we are doing is right or wrong, or whether we need to course correct. So therefore, events like this IWEI audit is a very good benchmarking situation for us, opportunity. And then, of course, these networking events when we can hear from other organizations and experts and really understand how we are going to do it over the next 2, 3, 4 years. So I think that forward-looking bit is what is really exciting for us at GEITC.
Vicky, did we lose you? Or you're speaking on mute? Yeah.
No, I think we lost her.
Vicky, if you're speaking, you're on mute. The virtual world brings its benefits and the cons. Where we don't have to travel anywhere to talk to each other, but then we just get disconnected. I hope she's back soon. And the last question.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Vicky? No, lost you again. This is for the audience. You can please type in your questions on the question Q&A box on the right side corner of the screen. It's at the bottom of it. Go ahead, type in your question for the panelist or for the moderator. We'd be happy to take a few questions. We have a little bit of time here. Okay. I'm just keeping an eye on the questions if you have. And to the panelist, last wrapping thoughts, like last one-liner closing on what does inclusion mean to you personally? This was not, so you feel free to like take your time and think about it, like closing comments on that. What does inclusion mean to you personally? And anyone can go, whoever wants to. Yeah.
So I'll go ahead.
Go ahead.
Ritvam, if you want to go ahead, please.
No, please go ahead, Ruby. It's fine.
I think I'll take one of the statements that Ritvam just mentioned, and I'll just stretch it a little more. I think my personal belief about inclusion is that very soon there would be a day when we wouldn't need a D&I function. We wouldn't need a D&I leader. Yes, I will lose my job, but I'm sure I'll find a better job. But at the risk of that, I say that there will come a day. And yes, I am that positively optimistic about it, that there will come a day when we wouldn't need organizations like Pride or Stonewall or KSF to build inclusion into the society, because it will be in our DNA. And all of us here on this platform, I think collectively we have the power to make that change happen. And that's at a personal level, I think each one of us carries so much power. If we use even a little bit of it for social inclusion, leave alone the jobs that we do and the work that we do in the organizations we work for, which is fantastic. But there's so much more, there's so much power that we carry that eventually we all will make that happen.
Absolutely, that's a wonderful thought. Thank you for that, Surovi. Rhythm?
I don't know if this is the right definition, but I say diversity is a reality. Inclusion is how we act on it. And belonging is what I feel. So I feel the efforts that us all organizations are doing on diversity and inclusion across different spheres, end of the day goes towards how well does an individual feel the belonging to an organization, to a society. And that's where over time, I think in a very quick frame of time, relatively short period of time, we'll have to take the conversation from an organization's inclusion to an individual's belonging to an organization. In our organization here, we've made some strides on that. We were exploring that with some initiatives, but to give a short one-liner answer, I think inclusion would be the end goal of inclusion would be the sense of belonging to an organization or society.
Very well said. Thank you, Rhythm. Gurpreet?
Yeah, thanks, Ram. So I'll in fact start with one of the comments that I missed to address earlier. So that was about what we will really suggest the companies who could not come up this time. So the key word that I have found from this IWEI forum is introspect. So like we did, everybody should introspect and just see where we are and where we ought to be. On inclusion, I'll just say that in a picture puzzle, it will never be complete, even if the single smallest part is missing. So for all the businesses that they are thinking are running very well, please again introspect, give it a thought, and realize the power of inclusivity, where it can take us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. There's one question from the audience, and then whoever wants to take it can go ahead. How do you deal with policy change skeptics in the company? Anyone wants to comment on that can go ahead. How do you deal with policy change skeptics in the company?
maybe Ram, I'll take a try, and I think I'm sure everybody will have wonderful ideas here. So I would say two things. One is one thing that we do in our D&I framework, which we call the WOW, or the way of work, is we tie in all our activations around, whether it's on policy, practice, infrastructure, mindset. We tie everything around the impact we are driving on either hiring more talent, diverse talent, retaining more diverse talent, or growing more diverse talent. So if you are able to link the proposed changes on either a policy or a practice, anything, any change that we are trying to, and change is always opposed, change is not easy, to any one of those things, any one of those goals, it helps the conversation. But I guess the second bit is you always need a senior leader who's your champion, who's supporting you. We are fortunate to have many such senior leaders who really champion the D&I aspects, and then you need to bring them on board and take it forward. That's one thing certainly that can be explored.
Thank you very much, Ritam.
So I'll just add to that, Ram. I guess skepticism or cynicism comes from our own life experiences. So in my view, instead of, these days there's this whole cancel culture that's happening. I think it's very important for us as change makers to understand, why is there skepticism? What's driving that? It would be quite surprising to find out this story, because each one of us carries lots of stories which are driven by our own life experiences. So have a conversation, find out what's driving that skepticism, and then follow it with data. While feelings and emotions and all of that is in its place, but businesses are driven by data. Everybody would want to see what's in it for the business. So have the data and then push your case, and you'll be surprised that a simple conversation can change their mindset.
Well said. A simple conversation can change mindset, because it's not part of our lived reality. It doesn't exist, is what most of us think and believe, and hence the need of that conversation. Thank you. I think this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today, and congratulations on being an IWEI silver and bronze employees. Thank you. And we look forward to having you again next year. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Ram, for jumping in and taking over. I think Vicky's having some trouble in joining in. So yeah, moving ahead. Thank you all the leaders. Thank you, Surovi, Ritvam and Gurpreet for joining us today and sharing your thoughts. And also, and the work your organization has undertaken to foster and sustain LGBT plus inclusion. I think that's really great to see that, and the kind of work which has been submitted from all the organization. In fact, that was amazing. It was a great thing for us to also to go through all those applications. It was a wonderful, journey for us as well. And thank you, Vicky and Ram, for moderating it so well. So right now we are actually at the last leg, not a last leg. We still have something really amazing coming up. The next and final panel discussion, which is with our gold employers, the ones who is raising the bar higher and on inclusion. And may I invite Ram again to do the introduction to our esteemed panelists and take the discussion forward. Over to you, Ram, again. Thanks.
Thanks, Nikki. Before we jump to the panel, I welcome the panelists. This is the link where you can access the report. This is the cover of the report, India Workplace Equality Index, Top Employers 2020. The link to download is workplaceequalityindex.in. In this report, you will find data around the sectors of various industry sectors which participated in it, the total number of companies, the list of organizations that chose to participate openly, and their logo is available there. There are also best practices in policies, in employee engagement, ERG, community engagement, a few of those which were touched earlier by Nancy. So please go ahead, give it a read. Feel free to download it. There are best practices from organizations. It is a sample of what is happening in India. These are really amazing best practices. For instance, I'll just call out that Lilac did a sensitization training with doctors on trans awareness. That was fantastic. I think the policy piece on Tata Steel is really amazing. BCG has put together some wonderful content around research and content. Godred's work around the trans inclusion report. So there are various facets of work which is happening in India Inc. And we're really proud to have been able to be in a space to put it together for everyone to access it. So please feel free to download the report. Moving on to the next panelist. Raising the bar higher on inclusion is harder when you are already at the top. And I welcome the gold employers Hsbc and Accenture. Gunveen and Venkat, please join us. And the first question for you would be to just introduce yourself.
So hi, I can go first. My name is Gunveen Ahuja, and I am part of HSBC. I think Ram already mentioned that. So my day job in HSBC is I manage a contact center, which in itself is very high intensity and very vibrant. And to add to that, I also manage the diversity and inclusion portfolio for the Bangalore site. And recently, I've also been asked to lead the Pride India chapter. So that's my introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. Venkat?
Hey, Ram, can you? Hi, thanks. I'm the HR lead for our operations business in India and Sri Lanka. I'm also the Pride sponsor, and I'm the mental wellness champion for all of for the entire workforce in India. My 18th year with Accenture. I'm based out of Bangalore.
Wow! Congratulations on 18 years at Accenture. And I think we have the right people in the room. They are mental health experts, Pride leads, exec sponsors for the Pride ERG. So quickly, what is your organization's journey on this space till now? Let's start with Venkat.
Sure. Thanks, Ram. As always, it's been. In fact, I was just when you announced the awards earlier today, I was just thinking what a decade-long journey it has been, and this is such a tribute to every single person that's been involved in some form or the other. The journey really started with conversation, sensitization, to in the mid section of the last decade, introduction of things like gender reassignment surgery, hosting trans workshops, introduction of LGBT partner benefits, so on and so forth. And I think today the journey has moved from one of not just talking to people within, but also with suppliers, with communities, with families. As we were doing this entire submission, it was incredible how it fostered a lot of forward thinking as well, in addition to just taking stock of where we were. And I think where we are on the journey today is it's a journey that's has morphed from gender to pride to one of equality. And I think that's where we are in our journey today.
Thank you. That's very well put. Gunveen, would you like to talk about the journey at HSBC?
Sure. Thanks, Ram. So I will start by quoting some recent communication without adding any color or words of my own. So our commitment to diversity and inclusion remains strong, even in the challenging times. Or being inclusive is an expression of our values to be dependable, open, and connected, and create an environment where people are valued, respected, supported to achieve their potential. We want HSBC to be a place where all employees feel they can be themselves, and where different perspectives help us serve our customers better. So I would say we've been fortunate. I think Ram, you made a mention of some of the organizations which have been global, which are global, and probably already had a platform where they could leverage from, when it comes to best practices. Like Venkat made a mention, we've had a long and strong tradition of identification and partnering with the LGBTQ and movement globally. without going back too much in the history, I'm going to quickly touch upon some of the proud moments that we've had. And I'm going to start by where we probably started. And it probably started way back in 2013 when we had lit our headquarters in Hong Kong with the colors, or when we commissioned a leading gay artist to reimagine our iconic bronze icon, lions in rainbow colors, or offering insurance policies for our same-sex couples, or signing up business statement for transgender equality for the right of million of people in the US and identify as such. So, you know, if since our platinum sponsorship of the World Pride in New York City in 2019, marking 50th anniversary of the Stonewall riots, we've been actively participating in parades in UK, New York, Mexico, Toronto, Sydney, and Milan, to name some. While we made almost our all our global policies friendly to community and applied our core values and diversity and inclusion, we intend to do much more. To ensure global inclusivity and right securement for our people, whoever they may be, whatever they may be, or choose to be. There's our philosophy. We are proud of our legacy, hence our conscious usage of the word pride to denote our own allyship to the cause. So these are some of the things that I'm, extremely proud of, as part of our organizational journey, I would say.
Thank you, Gunveen. That's really well said, that when your colleagues in different parts of the world are attending Pride marches like a New York World Pride or a Hong Kong Pride, and then it's easier to push that case that, hey, we want to attend a Pride march in India and in a Bangalore and a Delhi and a Pune, right? One moment personally for you as an individual about either allyship or as an out exec LGBT person of pride, taking pride in what the organization has achieved. A moment, if you had a moment of reflection like this as an event or a particular initiative, which I really remember and hold truly dear to my heart. Any of you? Yeah.
Venkat, would you like to go?
Yes. Very, very happy to. With your permission, Ram, I'll make it brief and I'll do two.
Yes, please.
Moment of pride is, I'm an out executive. And my first moment of pride dates back 10 years when somebody accidentally outed me, and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone because it may backfire. But in my case, it worked out beautifully. I'd returned from overseas, somebody outed me in India, mentioned it casually, a room full of people put up their head, went back to their daily life like nothing had happened. And that's when I realized what a terrific set of people that I actually work with. Great moment of pride. I always anchor back to that because that reinforces every single day the fabric of the firm that I work for and the people I work with. And, it was almost like they always knew. I didn't talk about it. And then they knew and nothing really changed. I think the second moment of very deep pride is our work on the inclusive internship we've done recently. Over the last year, I think we're running third batch right now. And it's an alternate staffing program we started. And it's aimed to build a skilled talent pool of PWD and transgender candidates by providing them a 6-month paid internship to make them readily employable within or outside Accenture. And, these interns are provided reasonable accommodation, assistive devices, transport facilities, and we do deep sensitization for teams. They join in on transgender sensitization for supervisors, extended teams, etc. I'm very proud to say that we've actually hired many transgenders into our workforce in the last 2 years. And, I think that's a matter of such deep pride that I feel. Thanks for allowing me through there.
Thanks for sharing that. They're wonderful. Gunveen, would you like to go ahead?
Sure. So, Ram, I had a friend long time back, and this is way back, when I probably started my professional journey. I knew he was a gay, but he would never say it because he felt, and I come from a small city. I come from Chandigarh, where the mindsets are extremely conservative. I didn't know how to approach that and ask him or talk to him. he probably also didn't know how to actually reach out to somebody and have a conversation. And that's where I would say I kind of got involved in being wanting to be an ally, because obviously the chapters were not so comprehensive. There was very limited knowledge at that point of time. And when I joined Hsbc, and that's the time, and this is early 27, I would say early 2018, when I was asked to be the D&I lead. And my boss then said that, hey, you know what, this is something we definitely need to bring in more focus on. And I was more than happy to do that. And that's when I got to travel to Philippines and Hong Kong, and I was able to, and I love these pride lanyards, which I wear with a lot of pride. I begged, borrowed, stole some of them while coming in, and I remember I got about 200 odd. Now it was all about how do we start the conversations, how do we really understand where people stand, because 377 ruling still hadn't come in. So somebody saw me, obviously a whole lot of people saw me wearing these lanyards and they wanted them. So I said, interesting, we are not talking about it. Okay, so I said, if you want this lanyard, and my team, my day job team is about 1,000 people strong. And people started coming to me because they wanted. I said, you want it? You go, you find out what pride is. You go find out, the number of ERGs we have, and come back to me. And if you answer the 4 or 5 questions that I ask you right, I will give you the lanyard. And believe me, I ran out of those 200 lanyards just like this. And not only that, the other business services people started approaching me because they wanted to, wanted those lanyards. And it also got me thinking, hey, there are people out there who not only want to support and want to be able to do more and are curious and want to learn more. And I guess that was a moment that started. And then by September, obviously, the ruling came in. And the moment we rolled out a communication and say, hey, would you like to be an ally? And in the first communication itself, we had like 500 plus people registering in the first time.
Wonderful. Thank you.
That was, I would say, a very, very proud moment, and made me feel completely aligned and ally, probably totally sold on.
That's wonderful. I mean, Surovi earlier was talking about the importance of having a conversation, and a lanyard can be such a great segue to have that conversation. Like, what does this represent and why people wear it? Another reminder for people, you can type in your questions in the Q&A box. There's one question for both of you. Any specific example of positive business impact or movement on a metric since an organization has embarked on the journey? You can take a while to think of it. While I ask you another question, is one best practice from your organization you'd like to share? One best practice. So there is a ton of things which both your organizations are doing. One thing which is you would like to share with the audience here. One best practice. Venkat?
Yeah, happy to. I'll actually, on the best practice, go back to 2017. And in 2017, actually, we hosted the first transaction workshop. And it was a day-long workshop in October, I remember, with Solidarity Foundation to bring together members of transgender community and D&I specialists, HR heads, corporate bodies such as lawyers, mental health professionals, etc. And, we walked away with many things, including our very first steps on understanding the struggles of transgender people. Now, the reason I bring it up as a great example of a best practice is, I think one of our biggest learnings is it's not just about us. It's about, equality happens when we lift others as we rise.
True.
And, and I think just remembering that in every action of inclusion is, and therefore we constantly seek out to say, how are we helping someone else rise along with us? And whenever you want me, I can talk about the business impact. Should I do it now?
Yeah, you can go ahead. Yes.
Yeah. And, I think I'll talk about our diverse supplier development program. And I think we work with diverse businesses which are owned by minorities, women, LGBTs, veterans, etc. And I think it's a formal 12, 18-month program where we match Accenture executive mentors with diverse suppliers to help them grow their businesses. And, in turn, the clients, communities, we all benefit from their innovative contributions. Now, what we've done is, I think we believe that, we've done this and we've created more businesses, jobs, economic growth. And we, our goal by the end of last year was to actually graduate 170 diverse suppliers. We actually graduated 165 suppliers worldwide, and across various countries. And I think that's a that is a direct impact that we've had on the businesses, innovation, etc.
Thank you, Gunveen. One best practice and one business impact. Business impact is not mandatory. Best practice is.
I think I kind of made a mention of that, Ram, earlier. I think wearing the lanyards is I think been one of the best practices that we've had, because not only it clearly shows that you're an ally, but you also support and believe in the cause, because it also helps us to have those conversations. And once we got started, it just got on like wildfire across India, across entities. That's something that's really worked well for us. Also, very consciously, having that branding at the right spots, especially when we are going out to hire, not only internally but also externally, it just probably has a certain perception. It creates that perception that we are an inclusive environment, and we believe in diversity and inclusion, and there is space for everyone there. I think that's really kind of helped us. It gets the conversations going. It makes people more comfortable, and nothing seems unnatural, if I can say so. So I think that's one of the best practices that I would like to share. And again, I think similar to what Venkat had mentioned, globally, we've had a lot of these supplier programs, which has created opportunities to probably partner with different communities, which overall has created a lot of positivity, I would say, and created lot of business opportunities, not only internally but probably externally as well. So that's one thing that I would definitely like to share.
Absolutely, thank you. As a gold employer, and as you very rightly started, Venkat, that has been a journey of more than a decade, right? Where it's not something which happens in one day, and it's contribution of every single person who was involved in a big or small part, and that's how leads to a culture transformation, and where you feel like there are multiple things you're doing right as an organization when it comes to LGBT plus inclusion. Three things you could say from the top of your mind, like 3 areas where organizations can focus on. This is primarily for organizations which are in today silver and bronze, how to transform to a gold organization. Best practices, thoughts, opinions, any of that.
Sure, thank you. Great. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Great question. Thanks. I think I'll start with something as simple as policies, which forms the ground for everything. Second is, I think, a huge ally network, and constantly striving to empanel and engage them. No matter what the size of the organization, I think proportionately just that work to run. I think the third one is very, very close to my heart, and I keep talking about this to say, just make your peace that you will deal with an invisible audience. Because the journey is one of giving a safe, secure, equitable workplace with a paradigm of equality, and not with a paradigm of, let me first find out how you are diverse and then I will make an ecosystem for it.
True.
And we will all deal with an invisible audience, because coming out is a complex journey. And there are such finer nuances of coming out to self, who you are in the LGBTQIA spectrum, your life experiences. You have to realize, and therefore in a corporate workspace, you draw that boundary of saying, I strive for equality, and let it drive and be very comfortable, because I see a lot of people getting very uncomfortable saying, I don't know who I'm talking to. That's all right. Those are my 3 messages, Ram. Thanks for asking.
Thank you. That's very well put. Gunveen, would you like to share some thoughts?
Sure. I think policies are the starting point. I think that's starting point for any employee, where they feel that you're creating an inclusive environment. I think that's the first part. And I think our HR team has been phenomenal, and we did leverage some of our global policies, and we were able to implement a lot of those policies of insurance, medical policies, sex reassignment, etc. So I think that's the starting point. For me, the second would be the environment that we create within the workspace. I think, and you and I went back and forth when we were on all the branding, when we were trying to get our gender neutral washrooms into place, because that's when you are in, and that's where you can really sense, because you can do a lot of branding externally, but what you feel inside once you're in the organization actually makes you stick, and also makes you our advocate or our brand ambassador outside to say that what we say is what we mean. And third, I think something that's probably an eye opener, and something we definitely need to be a lot more focused on, is giving back to the community. I would say we've made some progress. So, for example, partnering with Humsafar on Gulabi Mela, or partnering with Humsafar during the pandemic and going out and providing supplies to the transgender community, because I personally feel they're the ones who suffered the most and probably were forgotten very easily. These are 3 things that I can think of, right? Which put you out there.
That's very important, that it's not just communicating externally that you're a great employer, but ensuring that people inside experience that belonging and feel that they are welcome. Venkat, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't figure out how to raise my hand on Zoom. And I think, Gunveen, I'm just going to say this. I think perhaps it's true for all of us, right? I think role of our leadership for, it cannot be understated. And I think it's really the bedrock of the bedrock of what happens in the corporate world. I just wanted to bring that in. It was, it wasn't on the 3+3, but I very strongly feel, without that, it could pretty much be a conversation between 2 people.
Absolutely.
I agree.
And because you touched upon coming out being a complex process for an LGBT plus individual in the workplace, I would like to ask this question to you. Why do we see so far and few senior out LGBT plus role models in India in today?
I think it could be, I'm giving you my hypothesis, and not that I haven't wondered, right? For the longest time, I'm still perhaps one in a few thousand people. I wondered, I think it's about, it could be as simple as, are you out to yourself? It could be, I'll give you an example, right? I had a colleague who came to me and said, my daughter just came. I thought my daughter was suicidal, and perhaps she was pregnant, or she was imagining the worst. And she eventually, her daughter came and spoke to her, and her daughter said, Mama, I'm a lesbian. And she essentially said, hey, I have no idea what I'm dealing with, but my entire 10 years with Accenture seems to be a gift of learning how to be a good mother eventually. And, that was a proud moment for me. Just hear somebody say that. But, then we said, will you come and share your story? And she said, no, because I don't know who's going to be on the listening end. I don't know if I can guarantee the safety of my daughter. She's about to go off to college. She's just at the end of her teens. I don't know what she will be subjected to. I don't know which other parent is listening. So she said, you know what? It is not my decision to share her story anywhere. And I think I use that to remind myself, there are many reasons, Ram, and what we can do is, I'll use the word Gunmin used, right? We create the ecosystem where you feel safe, secure, and we hope that you share. Now, let me tell you this. We have self-ID. We have a handful of people who have self-ID'd, right? And its data is confidential. But I do know that there are many of our employees on a WhatsApp group chatting with each other, right? And I said, can I join the WhatsApp group? And I was told, stay out of it. You're in a senior role, and we exchange messages, and we don't want you on it, and that's fine. But the fact that I know that there is a membership, I know there are people, and therefore it's encouraging to just continue to make it a safe, secure, equitable, meritocracy-driven place. It's I don't think, Aram, to your question, there is a straight answer. It could be who you're working with, my perceived implications, so on and so forth.
Great, thank you. And you touched upon something which is also a question from the audience, is like, what are the views on creating a way or process of self-ID? I want to understand different perspectives on this, and would love to know what panelist POV is. And another question is, creating awareness and sensitization is no guarantee to ensure that a manager will treat an LGBTQ plus employee equally. How do you ensure that there is a mechanism for feedback? You can choose to answer either question, any of you.
Gunmin, do you want to go first on any of them? I'm happy to, but go ahead.
So probably I would take on the second one, because I've heard it so often. When we run all the allyship trainings, we try and create that inclusive environment. We do our bit as being allies or being part of diversity and inclusion group, and rightly said, there's a very high possibility. Despite doing everything, the manager might, may not really treat all employees equally or the team members equally. So I think that's where we definitely need to get the organizational policies into place, where we reinforce that discrimination is a complete no-no, and we believe in treating all employees equally. At the same time, it's also equally important to have the right support groups in place. I think earlier there was a mention of how these support groups have been created, gender neutral. Now not saying it's sexual discrimination. It's all it can be mental harassment. It could be emotional harassment, and that's where probably. Those conversations, very pointed conversations, probably need to happen with the manager, where it's important to let them know we may not completely be able to change the mindset, but leave all that negative mindset or bias back home, right? And create the sense of positivity, create the sense of inclusivity. I know it sounds very it can be sounding very idealistic, but then I think as people who are here or people who are allies, the responsibility is theirs to make sure that they stay aware. They have those regular conversations, and anytime they feel that there is discrimination that is happening, you need to step in and take that ownership of being an ally and being a partner.
Absolutely, and it's not idealistic. We just heard a real example from Venkat that an employee coming and saying my 10 years at Accenture helped her become a better ally to her daughter.
Absolutely.
Venkat, your thoughts on self-ID, and we close this.
Yeah, perfect. I just, Gunveen, I think what you just shared inspired me to, I just want to add this, and we all, legislation cannot change people. It can at best offer structure. I think we can all influence the change one step at a time. And it happens through the various things that you said. And thank you for asking a question on self-ID, right? I think Accenture asks employees, we've given an option on our internal people portal page to collect data on LGBT plus status, which is self-declared via the self-ID option. And post-collection, we have 4 points of assurance to our people. One is the collection, communication, and storage of these responses is extremely secure. So in a country where we have a workforce of over 200,000 people, 4 of us have access to that information. Okay. Second is a very limited group of resources on the global and local inclusion and diversity HR teams will be able to access the statistics of the responses submitted. Third, all responses are anonymous. And finally, it gives us, why do we do it? It gives us the opportunity to identify people and engage with them directly so that we can monitor the impact of our inclusion and diversity programs. We can create targeted initiatives, understand where there are gaps in recruitment, retention, and advancement of employees. And we lead with that stated purpose, and that information is not used beyond that stated purpose. I think that's how we've done it. And it's actually very, very well guarded, for the lack of a better word, as we do it. And I think that offers people the safety and security to say, hey, here I am. If you want to talk to me, I'm available.
Absolutely. It's a very important and a very trust building exercise with the community. So confidentiality and privacy is a must in this. Thank you so much, both of you, for taking time out and talking to us and talking about all the amazing things you're doing. And congratulations on being a gold employer. We look forward to having you again next year. Thank you, Venkat. Thank you, Gunveen.
Hey, thank you so much for having us. Pleasure meeting you, Gunveen.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Gunveen and Venkat, for sharing your perspective and how your organizations are committed and determined to towards the LGBT plus inclusion. Thank you, Ram, for orchestrating it so well. Thank you so much. Before I hand over to Ram, once again, congratulations to all the companies and the winners, bronze, silver, and gold employers. Also, thank you so much for being such a wonderful audience. I know it is on virtual platform, but it would have been great to see all of you. But thank you for being there and cheering for all our winners and things like that. So thank you so much for joining in. Before I hand it over to Ram, a very important note for you to IWEI also offers customized feedback report based on your submission, along with an hour-long consultation with a team of experts. We encourage you to subscribe to this report because this will help you to understand where you stand on this journey. Also a deep dive into current practices and also do some gap analysis and provide you a strategy for the future. So this comes at a very small cost. If to avail this, your team can get in touch with me or write to me at nikita@pridecircle.com. That's my email ID. You can ping me. I'm sure most of you know that. Thank you so much for joining in. And Ram, floor is all yours for the closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Nikki, and I have to give a shout out to you for all the amazing work which you have done and being in touch with so many companies, helping them through the entire process of understanding the flow to helping the submission process to the end-to-end coordination, communication, and getting everyone here. So kudos to you for all the brilliant work which you have done. I really wish you were in a face-to-face setup where you could actually raise a glass, raise a toast, and celebrate this wonderful historic moment we are in time, and also just hug each other and say that it does get better when we all take action. As we said, you can make a difference, and everyone here is making a difference by taking time out of their days to talk about LGBT plus inclusion and to act with affirmative actions to really make a difference. IWEI is very close and personal to me, and really great selfish reasons of doing it as an LGBT plus person, that when organizations take effort to include, and it just gets easier for people to be who they are, and they can really focus on doing what they can do best, rather than trying to hide, rather than trying to be someone else and trying to fit in, which is absolutely unnecessary. So thank you to every single company for taking part in this. And this is very close to both Srini and me at Pride Circle, that we definitely push the conversation and push the bar on inclusion higher by really providing impactful opportunities for organizations to come together, understand how we can really collectively make a difference. And as we come to a close to this wonderful day, a huge thank you to Stonewall, KSF, FICCI for being a partner in this wonderful program, which would not have been possible without the continued support. So thank you, all the partners, Richa, Keshav, Pete from Stonewall, Lynn, Vicky, Nancy, Mr. Chinoy, Uma, Bavleen, the team at Pride Circle, Nikki, Namrata, Srini, and many more people who have really been instrumental for this to be a reality and a possibility for all of us. Do join us in 2021, and all of you have received the social media guidelines. Go out, give us a shout out, celebrate it. The hashtags are hashtag equal at work, EQUAL at work, and the other is hashtag IV2020. So please go ahead, celebrate this recognition, and let's make as much noise as we can, because we are all doing really great work, and it's time that we celebrate that. And don't be an ally in a closet, either as an individual or as an organization. While it's important that we are visible vocal allies, because we have the power to make a difference. With that, thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening and a great weekend ahead. And thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for being here. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Ram. Thank you, Richa. And thanks to everyone that was on this and finally made it happen. You actually made queer history today.
We all did it together. Queer history.
Queer history today. I think we love being the first of many.